Hi, I'm Skylar Sorkin, and I am so excited to be inviting you all in today to sit down with Linktree to celebrate the launch of the Regardless Pivot, which is now out in the world, ready for you guys. Hi.
Hi. Okay, Miss Skylar. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too.
I'm excited for this interview.
So excited. It feels so nice that the roles are reversing because I'm always leading the conversation. So it feels just juicy
Yep.
to share what I'm building
Yeah. And
with the
today,
world.
today's all about
Thank
you.
you.
And we're so excited to really spotlight you and
Mhm.
your regardless moment. So
Wow.
let's just hop in, show our audience who you are, and tell them all about your brand. Let's hop into it. Miss Skylar, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am the founder and podcast host of Regardless.
So how long have you been doing all of this?
Girl, okay, Regardless started in college, which is
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
So, Regardless was born from an SOS moment that I was going through, which I think we
Right.
all experience as 20 something women, where I was faced with essentially a quarter life crisis. And unfortunately, in college, I went to an amazing school and
Hmm.
I did all the right things. But I was realizing that, oh my goodness, I feel like college did not prepare us with life skills needed to thrive,
Right.
to understand how to navigate all of the noise, whether it's in our career, our relationships, the relationship that we have with ourselves, social media, all of it. We weren't given those skills
Totally.
in college. And I had this aha moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, first of all, I'm very privileged. And I know that I have
Hmm.
access to an emotional SWAT team. As you know, my mom is a reoccurring guest speaker on the podcast,
Right.
and she's a marriage and family therapist, and my dad is an executive team coach. And in any SOS moment I was experiencing in college, I literally would grab in my back pocket my phone and be like, Mom, we're dealing with an SOS, whether it was with navigating academics to friendship issues in the sorority house to situationship after situationship,
Hmm.
healing an eating disorder, depression, you name it, all of it. I had my mom to support me and to navigate with me and to help me pivot that, regardless of what was showing up in my external and internal world, I had a mini hype woman, but also a pivot system. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, if I was able to just record these phone calls with my mom,
Hmm.
to record some of the things that I was learning in real time, and even the really natural and real organic conversations I was having with my mentors, we would all be growing at such an accelerated rate versus just what we were learning in lecture. And
Totally.
so, Regardless was born from my personal SOS moments navigating this chaotic world as a Gen Z female.
Right.
And Regardless is something that has followed me to today, being 27 and growing this baby to being featured on Apple Podcasts, New and Noteworthy, signed with the LA Tribune, but now really being able to be like, whoa, I didn't create the word regardless. But what I did do is I provided context around it, and I've created this framework. And I've created a framework through really real conversations on the podcast, but also now getting to work with partners like Linktree and Kajabi and having a platform of what is regardless? What is this pivot? And how can it help the girls listening at home to find their own pivot?
Totally. And I feel like with everything that you're doing, it's so amazing because first of all, life is just not linear,
Nope.
but then also hearing the fact that yes, like you do have such an amazing support system that
Yeah.
not every single person out there either knows that they have or, they don't know who to turn to.
Yeah.
So I think it's great because in so many ways you kind of serve as like it's like digital big sis in
Yes.
some
Yes.
ways. And like you're just giving people an outlet, which is so amazing and special. And the fact that your mom is a part of all of this too, it's incredible. And can you tell us, so with the podcast, I
Yes.
guess on the content creation side of everything, is that did that kind of come hand in hand? Were you creating content around the time that you launched the pod, or what did that look like?
It's a great question. This is an interesting, I guess, reflection for me, because if I think about it, I've been creating content my whole life. So my background is actually in dance and performing arts.
Amazing.
So I've been speaking for a while. When I was like, first of all, I wrote a book. Like, no one knows it. I wrote a book when I was 12. I'm not even kidding.
Iconic, but that's amazing. I literally did not even, this is genuine reaction.
I don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
But it's called, this is crazy. It's called Shining Through a Social Storm.
Wow.
Whoa. Okay. Literally having like a full circle moment. I actually haven't even sat down with myself to like reflect on like just the loop of what's happening.
Totally.
There's constantly storms around us. And the fact that I was 13 years old and I was able to like sit down and write that book and understand that concept, I feel like regardless is creating an answer for that. That's a total side note. But I guess that was my first step into content creation, into writing, into creating, to inspire, to influence, to create an impact. And, you know, growing up dancing and choreographing, all of that has been an essential part of who I am. And I think that in college, I started like a little blog where it was really about like wellness, mental health. I've always loved self-expression and really this idea of a personal brand, because I think regardless of whether or not you are an influencer or you do not post or write, we all have an influence in the way that we show up, in the way that we influence other people. And that scale can look completely different, right? Like whether you have thousands and thousands of followers on Instagram or you don't, we all influence and we all have a personal brand. So if you ask me, I think I've been content creating for years, but it did start to really pick up, especially with the podcast, starting my senior year in college.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
that was a weird. I'm sorry. That was weird.
But like, I just want to like say that was my genuine like reaction. You never told me that you had written a book, let alone it be when you were like 12, 13.
Yeah.
Which is also, I think, such a pivotal time in life as well. But it's really great. Like, you're a multi-hyphenate. She's a dancer. She's an author. Podcast host. Like, it's amazing. So again,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're incredible. But I wanna take it back just a little bit more. I know, you know, we were talking about this partnership that we have, Linktree and Regardless. And I would love to hear about this course you have coming out. If you can tell us a little bit more about that and what inspired you to start it.
First of all, this is a dream partnership. For me, authenticity is one of the main pillars of Regardless, is being really real. And Linktree has been such a predominant pillar to really building my business, scaling, and reaching the women who need me the most and Regardless the most. So for this partnership to unfold, it was just so natural. And also our friendship, and just absolutely adoring your team. So I'm honored that we get to launch this baby into the world.
Yes, so excited.
It's really exciting. And the reason why I started it, I think, you know, sharing a little bit more about my why for why I started the podcast. There's a lot of information and noise out there. And the world is a harsh place. I think we're living in a very interesting era as Gen Zers and beyond. I think regardless of what age or season or era you are in, it's difficult right now. Like speaking to my mom about some of the things that she's experienced, aging, even that multi-generational conversation of even the mentors that we bring onto the podcast, everyone is like feeling it right now. And I think one of the reasons why we're all feeling it so deeply is politically it's a little bit crazy, but also social media. Anyone can have a voice. Anyone can share anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're constantly being bombarded by that noise at every single second of the day, whether it's coming from ourselves internally to things that are happening around us, whether it's our manager, to our friends, to our moms, our sisters, you know, politically, school, the pressure to make money and like to afford a house. We're constantly feeling this on a day-to-day basis, and it can feel impossible. So how in the world are we supposed to know how to look at a self-help quote on Instagram and actually apply it? Like, that's all juicy, and I do it. It's marketing. You have to.
Yeah.
And it is helpful. And I'm grateful for those reminders. But also, where in the marketplace are you actually getting, here's actually, babe, how you can take that self-help quote and apply it into your everyday to pivot, to grow, to access that future self we always talk about.
Yeah.
And regardless, the pivot, the mindset is all about you have everything you need within to access the most real, confident, resilient, and purpose-driven version of yourself. And I'm really cutting away at the noise and providing this generation and beyond with an instant pivot that we all have within us. So it's not about consuming more content. It's actually about removing that content that's might be serving you, but actually creating a more personalized pivot to help you reach within and really reach for the toolkit that's inside to grow.
Yeah. No, and I love that. It's more about the actionable moments and things that you can do to get yourself to, again, like you mentioned, like kind of like that dream life that you want or you want to achieve. And I think like what you mentioned about saving quotes, like I am a quote girl.
Too.
Like I love to save quotes on like Pinterest and Instagram. And so I thought that by saving all those things, it would just help my situation. Yeah. But it's such a temporary fix. And it's you creating those actionable moments. And like through this course, like even just hearing you talk about it, I feel so empowered. I love you. And I haven't even taken the course. And so I think, just hearing that is it's so inspiring and exciting. And again, digital big sis here. You're giving everybody, this outlet that they might have not had previously, which is so amazing. So let's get into how the course is structured. Do you mind walking us through what that looks like?
Regardless is really this living organic entity. And what I mean by that is self-growth is not something that's overnight. It's not like you look at a self-help quote and you're good, or I wish, right? Or like you read a self-help book and you might feel great right after, but it's something that deserves attention. And I think self-work, self-growth it needs that seeding. And so the regardless pivot is something that you have in your toolkit, that regardless of what kind of SOS moment that is showing up in your everyday, you can come back to this course and you can run through the 3 steps of the framework to help you pivot regardless of what's showing up.
That's amazing. So it's kind of like a taste of regardless. And then if people want more, you are there for them.
100%. If they want more, of course, please come to my podcast where we have very real conversations about the pivot and where mentors actually come in and share their own regardless pivots, as well as myself and my mom. And then, of course, in addition to that, I am also a personal hype woman and work with my audience one-on-one to actually help them in implementing the regardless pivot into their everyday, as well as like group hype circles. So we can get a lot deeper with how to actually apply the regardless pivot into your everyday, but this course just introduces it. And what I've done is I've broken it down into 3 sections, and I'm more than happy to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, we'd love to hear kind of what would that look like for a new, let's say someone is completely new to you, to your podcast, just to the regardless brand in general, and they stumble across your Linktree course. Tell me what they can expect from that.
Absolutely. So regardless is an instant pivot into future you. And regardless of insert any SOS moment, you have the power to show up, to respond, to pivot, and to grow regardless. And this course breaks down the 3 steps into pivoting.
Love that.
Into accessing immediately your future you at any given moment. So the first step is know thyself. And that's really about knowing you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean all the parts. I mean the fluffy, fun, yummy, juicy parts, your values, your why, what turns you on, and also the parts that are like not so fun. The parts that like get in our own way, like limiting beliefs, self-doubt, that inner mean girl that we all have. So know thyself, the first step is really about knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And once we know who we are, we know how we tend to get in our own way. We know, places that we're getting stuck or what we truly want, like what our purpose is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's step one. And then step two goes into live thyself. And this is a super fun part. I think this is actually one of my favorite parts, but this is really about how are you living in alignment? How are you showing up? How are you living your life? And how you are living your life, is that actually reflecting who you are? Is that in alignment with know thyself? So in that process, we share a little bit more about what that actually means. And then also in each framework, there's also a journal and prompting section as well. So you're not only learning more about what these terms mean and what know thyself and live thyself means, but you're actually able to sit down with yourself and take yourself through each of the steps. And then the last step is when the pivot actually happens in real time. And this is where I actually walk you through the regardless pivot and really how I can help you in creating your own statement so you can know yourself when you are getting in your own way and you can show up in your life in a way that reflects that. And then you can actually drive thyself. So you're actually driving your life from a place of being in alignment so that regardless of what shows up, you have you.
Mm-hmm.
You have what it takes to move through it regardless.
No, that sounds amazing. And again, I think utilizing your course as this resource is so powerful. And I think just even hearing about it, again, I feel empowered and I think it's amazing. Okay, so let's go through the structure of your course. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
So the Regardless course is set up in 3 different modules. And each module, there's going to be anywhere from 2 to 3 lessons. The first 2 to 3 lessons are going to be a short read. And then the final lesson is going to be a regardless reflection, is where you actually journal, reflect, and make those pivots, whether it's happening internally or how you're showing up in the world and how you're actually creating your regardless statement and pivot so that when you are faced with that SOS moment, you can pivot immediately and you have the tools in order to do so.
Amazing.
And I do want to mention this as well. This framework is something that is a living entity. She is something that is going to follow you as you evolve. I really think that we're all lifelong students, and I want you to feel like you can come back to her at any moment. And there's going to be moments where you get to module 2 and you're like, you know what? I feel like I have to go back to module 1 and tend to that part of myself. That's what this is for. I want you to use this as a toolkit to rely on whenever you need her, because regardless is something that lives within. And this is yours. Please use it. And we're here for you.
Amazing. And so with all of that,
Yeah.
I know obviously we're like tapping into ourselves, but can you talk us through like who is this course for specifically?
This course is for my women out there. This is a framework that I made because I really deeply needed it. And this is for the woman that knows that she wants to be real, that she wants to be confident, she wants to be resilient. She knows that that lives within her, but it gets really noisy. And she can get in her own ways sometimes. And this pivot is for her. This pivot's for her.
Beautiful. I love that. And so let's just kind of zoom out, big picture. What are the things that you're doing alongside this course, alongside the podcast to really just market your course as well as the Regardless podcast as a whole?
Absolutely. So for me, I'm such an in-person girly and community is everything. In addition to, of course, creating really authentic, fun, and impactful content. I also have started my monthly community events. So I have a partnership with Noy House, and it's been incredible because there is where we can gather for monthly support groups, which at Regardless we called monthly support soirees, where the most real girls, real brands, real experts come together for real talk. And we really talk about the hardest, hottest subjects. And each month we come together to move forward and grow regardless. So I think through really intentional community events, as well as having the opportunity to come out to New York to create content, to meet your creators. I think those are all different ways that I am really sharing this course with the world, whether it is through the phone, but also in person with women in real time.
Can you tell us a little bit how, with the podcast, with this course that you have coming, tell us a little bit about what you're doing to market it and alongside, hand in hand with the podcast as well as everything else?
I am a multifaceted content creator and also just founder. There's a lot of things happening in my world. It can be a bit crazy sometimes. That's why I love Linktree, because I have so many different arms of the Regardless brand, right? Like, this is a media network if you think about it, but it's also a mental health platform. So it's like, how do you put all of your content onto one platform, right? That's kind of impossible, but Linktree is really able to bridge that gap for me, which has been game changing, because I do have Kajabi, which is where people can get access to the Regardless support of working with me as a personalized hype woman. They can also, attend my events, which is where we gather, the real girls gather for real talk. And each month we actually pivot together in person. I also have Skylar Sorkin, my personal brand on Instagram. I have Regardless a podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, then the Instagram. So it's like, where do all of these things live? And in conjunction with the course, Linktree makes it possible for me to market all of those things in one place. And it's super sick because even with my events that are launching, my support soirees, I just have a QR code and all of the girls at my event can easily click onto that link and get access to me and everything that we're building here at Regardless, because it's all about support. And the fact that Linktree allows me to support my audience in the most efficient way is game changing. Like, say less.
Amazing. No, and I mean, I feel like that captures us as a whole. Like, we are very creator forward and we want to be that platform that supports you. So it's amazing to hear that you're really utilizing all of the different functions and features, especially with all the exciting things we have coming down the pipeline. Like, this is way more than just, a link in bio.
100%. And it is interesting, like, even thinking about, sorry to be all woo-woo here, but when we look at the creator economy, people tend to put themselves into boxes, right? And of course, it's marketing. Like, we have to in order to sell or market a certain thing. But I also think there's a side of this that it's like, we are multifaceted human beings. We are dynamic women. And I love that Linktree celebrates that and makes that possible, because that to me is real and that is so Regardless. So this partnership just makes sense.
Perfect. No, that's wow. I think everything you said perfectly captures what Linktree is about. Like, you are, in my mind, what I envision as the Linktree creator, just because you have, so many different things going on. Again, as we mentioned, you're a multi-hyphenate. You're an author.
I'm like, what?
Author when she was a teenager. A podcaster, founder. Like, there's so many things to you, and hearing how you're utilizing your Linktree to bring all parts of you into one place where your audience and even us can really celebrate that is so, so powerful. And again, just leaning back to, this is so much more than a link in bio, especially for everything you have cooking. There's a lot going on, and I think it's amazing to see how you're utilizing it, as well as just really almost benefiting.
I really do firmly believe that Linktree does help me pivot, and Linktree helps me step into the most real, confident, and resilient version of myself, because there's a lot going on. Like, I'm in it with you guys. Like, we are living in a hard world right now. There's so much noise. And I think Linktree is really able to cut through that noise and shine the light onto creators and their audiences. So I'm really grateful for you guys.
We're grateful for you. So to wrap this all up,
Yes.
I would love to know, and we would all love to know, what is the one biggest takeaway you hope people receive from taking this course?
I love that question. If you don't believe in you, I believe in you, babe. And I just really encourage you to let Regardless help you step into the most real, confident, true, and resilient version of yourself, because you've got what it takes and you can access that future self now. You've got this.
Miss Skylar Sorkin, that was amazing.
Linktree!
No, that was like the perfect end. You like looked directly to camera. I was like, wow.